So today we will be talking about the importance of the Quran in our daily life and having that continuous and daily connection with it. So as we all know, the Quran is a spiritual guide for us Muslims especially, and it works for everyone. It works for all classes of people, all races, all countries, at all times, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future. It's a guide for all times. And most of the times, the character of a good Muslim is inspired by the Quran. So, for example, we often hear from the Quran the importance or the virtue of patience, prayers, zakat, being good to your parents, being honest, not being a hypocrite. So, it has a lot of wisdom in it, alhamdulillah. And we often realize that whenever there's a person that comes and tries to read the Quran with honesty and try to understand every word of it, we often see converts that, for example, they decided one day that they just want to explore this book and they start reading it and they see the truth in it and the wisdom. And because of that, it's a reason for them to convert. And so what I'd like to talk about is that the Quran basically it keeps our heart clean and our faith firm. And whenever we distance ourselves from it, you will have this void in you, and you will feel like something is missing in your life. To the point that nowadays, subhanAllah, a lot of people have it in their house, but they just leave it in the corner, collecting dust. They might open it every few weeks, few months, maybe once a year during Ramadan. And this is a big problem we have. To the point where, subhanAllah, sometimes we see people sending videos on Facebook and WhatsApp or whatever with false information, but they believe it about the Quran, and they believe it. Why? Because they barely read it, or they read it, but they don't understand it at all. So there's this ignorance related to the Quran. And as I mentioned, the Quran is timeless. So it's important whether it's in the past, present, or future, whether it's winter or summer. SubhanAllah, nowadays, or right now, we're in summer, and the weather, alhamdulillah, has been nice the entire week. عفوا ما عم بسمع الكاميرا تحت. Okay, so here. Okay. شكرا. Thank you. So right now we're in summer, the weather is nice, and it's hot, subhanAllah. And one thing you realize around you is that people start to dress up differently. So for example, you start to see a lot of women that will try to dress up in a more inappropriate way, and at the same time you'll see a lot of men that would not lower their gaze and start looking at these women in the wrong way. So let's see what the Quran says about that. In Surah An-Nur, ayah number 30, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ. And in the following ayah, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ أَنْ يَغُضُّنَّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنْ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنْ. So basically, Allah is saying in that ayah, O Prophet, tell the believing men to lower their gaze and to guard their chastity. That is pure for them. Surely Allah is all aware of what they do. And He gives the same order for women as well. And so if we're Muslims and we read this ayah and we understand it very, very well, then it's clear for us that we have to dress in a certain way, whether men or women, and we have to lower our gaze, men or women. Yet, in our society here especially, we still see people, Muslims, that still do the sin, they commit it, and then they justify it with silly reason. For example, oh, we've been through 4 or 5 months of winter, now it's summer, I want the sun to touch my skin, or I want to enjoy the summer. It's okay, let it go. It's not that big of a deal. And this is a trend we see in Muslims nowadays. They try to take it easily when they sin. It's like they try to justify it themselves with silly reasons. But the thing is, if you understand this ayah and you follow it truly, then you know that and Allah Azza wa Jal, He didn't just say it randomly, He gave you an order. And then He gave you, it's also as an advice, because He said, this is pure for you. You have to do this because it's purer for you. And how come you have this order and you have this advice from Allah Azza wa Jal? He's the most wise, He knows everything, yet you're still gonna go against His will and justify it with silly reasons. Reasons, yani, you should be ashamed of these reasons. And you see this trend, for example, sorry. Yeah, so you have these Muslims, they go around and they say, I know that Allah always tells the truth. I know Allah is the most wise. I believe in Him 100%. But when it comes to the moment of truth, when it comes to following what He asks us to do, they will back out. They will start giving excuses. So you're basically contradicting yourself. Are you not a man of your word? Are you not a person of your word, man or woman? You say something, but you act differently. You have to act up with your words. It's not just the words, they don't matter, it's actions that matter. And so the thing is, and this is as I said, this is a recommendation for Allah. Why? Because if you go back 30 or 40 years ago, even here in Canada, women used to dress up more modestly, and Muslim or non-Muslim. And bit by bit, they started influencing their mind to change the way they dress, and we are in this current state. How is the society now compared to 34 years ago? We have a lot of society problems. For example, you have issues with divorce, issues with single mothers, higher number of sexual assaults, higher number of sexual diseases. Why did this come? This is one of the main reasons for all these problems. It's because people cannot protect their chastity and they cannot lower their gaze. And you have all these politicians running around trying to find solutions for these problems that I just mentioned, but the answer is in front of them. They decide to ignore it. So should we act like them? Should we ignore the answer when it's right in front of us? The answer is clear. It's in our house, all of us. All of us have a copy of the Quran. We have it in our house. We have the answers, yet we decide to not look at this right now. We'll try to find a different solution, even though there's not. The solution is given to you by Allah, the most wise. He knows more than you. So what are you trying to prove? And so the thing that I wanted to give this example. So let's say it's mostly to show the connection we have with the Quran right now. Let's say the scenario where I tell you, suppose I'm a rich guy, I come to you and I tell you I want to read a book. I want you to read 10 pages of this book for 1 month. And I'll give you, by the end of the month, I'll give you $1 million. What will be your reaction? Like, you're not even gonna think about it, you're gonna take it directly. You're not even gonna think, oh, is this possible? Does my work life fit with this, family, whatever? No, you're gonna take the offer, and you're gonna think later about all the problems that will run into it. Now imagine the same scenario, but instead of it being like a random book, it's the most important book you know. It's the book that holds the most value in the world. Imagine it's the Quran. A guy tells you, I want you to read 10 pages for 1 month, and this time the reward is not $1 million. The reward is from Allah Azza wa Jal. He's richer than anyone. He can reward you much more. His compensation is a lot better. What will reaction be? SubhanAllah, probably I'd answer for myself. When someone tells me you have to read 10 pages for a day, I think, oh, but I have school. But I have this exam coming up. Maybe 5 pages, maybe 2 pages, it doesn't work. So you start making up excuses. It's like the shaitan, he's already in your mind. For $1 million, you take the offer, you go home and you start doing the work. If it's because of school, you will leave your exams, you maybe drop out of school. If it's because of work, you will go speak with your manager to take a vacation for a month, maybe even fight with your manager. Family, you will leave your family and come back in a month. I don't know. Some people will go to that far for $1 million. But when it's the same scenario, but it's the Quran and it's for Allah Azza wa Jal, everything changes. So, subhanAllah, we should always think about these scenarios in this way. If I was in a similar situation, but for something material, how would I act? And based on your reaction there, you know that you have the time. Obviously, the point here is not to go these extreme ways to read 10 pages a day. The point is that you're able to read 10, if not 5, if not one page, maybe one verse. We all have the time. We just don't maybe have the motivation or the understanding of how important the Quran is to apply or to put it into action. And so, just to conclude, as I mentioned, we all have this treasure in our home. SubhanAllah, nowadays, a lot of the times it's sitting collecting dust. People barely read it. You need to push them to read it. Maybe it's because they don't value it or understand the value, the wisdom in it. And this is another small example. So suppose, subhanallah, samahallah, you have a disease, and this disease, it's affecting your life. It's a big burden on you. And so what would you do? You would try and go and see a doctor, for example. Obviously, you want the best doctor to solve your issues. So you go to this great doctor, he has a lot of knowledge, and he gives you this prescription. You're going to apply it directly, no questions asked. If you try to not to apply it, then people are going to say you're crazy. Why wouldn't you? Now, a lot of us nowadays, we have problems, whether it's financially, or family, whatever, study, school. We have these problems, and we want a solution. So the solution, most of the times, it's in the book, it's in the Quran, and it's not from any person, it's from the most knowledgeable. It's it's from Allah Azza wa Jal. He has the most knowledge, more than anyone. Yet people struggle to follow his advice that's given in the Quran. So watch the contrast here, right? Yeah, so that's it. Alhamdulillah, and just a daily reminder, we can all read at least 10, well, not 10 pages, but we can put an effort to read 10 pages, 5 pages, 1 page, even a verse. Even that verse, if you try and read it truthfully and understand it, not just go through it, try to read it purposefully and understand it, and it's going to have a big impact on your life, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله